Finish the job you started, mighty God Slayer.
God Slayer. World Slayer. The Doom Slayer.
Real-time strategy games have never overly been my jam. Now sure, as a kid I played the original Age of Empires and Warcraft 3 and dabbled a little bit into Command & Conquer in my younger years. I was a fat, sweaty, pimply nerd who played Star Wars video games and bought those crappy spin-off video games from movies like 2008's Iron Man.
Just came up. Pack me a bag, will you?
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
But I also played Warhammer, or more commonly known as on the tabletop, or at least in the tabletop community, is plastic crack. I wasn't great at it by any means, but shortly after I started playing Warhammer, I heard of a video game called Dawn of War. When none of my friends from school wanted to play the tabletop game, I could play Dawn of War against the AI by myself, and over 15 years later, I'm doing the same thing here with Total War Warhammer 3. Now before I even start to get into this, I am not a Total War fanboy, I like Warhammer. I paint the models, I chat about the lore in the universe with my gaming mates online, and I regularly buy new boxes of models while I have perfectly good and near brand new sets of unpainted models just sitting in the corner, slowly being forgotten about like the tomato in my vegetable crisper.
Holdy? Hold! I'm gonna get something to eat!
So with that being said, I don't fully understand everything about Total War, but I do know that it is a loved series. Secondly, this channel is run, managed, and poorly managed I might add as well, and everything really is me. These are my personal opinions that I have with every game that I cover, and sure, while they might differ from your opinions or experiences, I'm not only more than willing to accept someone else's thoughts on a video game, but in some instances I'll read your comments and go back and try the game again, and I've done it recently. So, with that being said, let's get into it.
How did they get here?
Total War Warhammer 3 is the third and final game in the Warhammer Fantasy Battles trilogy for Total War, starting way back in 2016 with Total War Warhammer 1, the original entry. Now when I first got into PC gaming, a good buddy of mine got me a copy of Total War Warhammer 2 because he loves the Total War series and I love Warhammer, and this was a way for us to both play something we loved for separate reasons, and he kicked the ever-loving shit out of me because he knows how Total War works, and I played them knowing how the tabletop armies worked, which just wasn't the case because the game plays like a Total War game, not like the tabletop. Anyways, Total War Warhammer 3, which is obviously the third game in the Warhammer series, gives us, the player, a new story to follow and a new world to conquer. The story follows the lands and armies of Kislev and their bear god Ursun, who normally breaks the cycle of winter with a mighty roar, but he's been missing for 7 years. And well, it's been winter for 7 years for the nation of Kislev. But Ursun has been imprisoned by the first Chaos Demon Be'lakor, who recently got a really sweet model, and Be'lakor plans on using Ursun's power to take his revenge against the 4 Chaos Gods who stripped him of his power and his physical form. Ursun being tortured and in pain causes a rift between the mortal realm and the Chaos realm, and it's up to you, the player, to either save Ursun or to destroy him. So that gives us a new world to traverse in the Chaos realms. From launch, there are a handful of factions to play as in Total Warhammer 3, and that's what I'm sticking with naming wise. There's Kislev, which is basically medieval Russians who want to find and save their missing bear god. The Grand Cathay, who are basically an ancient army ruled by immortal dragons and are based around Imperial China and Chinese mythology, who want to find and save Ursun, who can help them find their missing dragon god. From there we've got not one, but 5 separate Chaos factions. We've got Nurgle, the Chaos god of despair, disease and decay, who wants Ursun's corpse to create a plague to kill gods. Khorne, the god of blood and skulls, wants Ursun's skull, obviously. Tzeentch wants Ursun's eyes so that he can see the present, as the oracle for the Chaos god Tzeentch can only see the past and the future, but not the present. The youngest Chaos god Slaanesh, who wants the sorrow of the god. And finally there's Chaos Demons in general, that uses basically all of the lesser god demons and just wants to find and destroy Ursun, but also take out Be'lakor. Gameplay wise, you're either fighting massive large scale battles that are damn impressive and look like they've been pulled from a scene from Lord of the Rings, or what Warhammer fans imagine when they're playing the tabletop game. Just before battle starts, you can set up what formation you want your army to have and set up the battle for yourself. Obviously, you want to set archers up behind soldiers, or better yet, place them on a cliff face where enemies need to charge up and around to get to the archers. Character models out in the battlefield look great, and there are some maps that are fantastic too. When taking on some Khorne demons, I noticed the shape of the map as well was even the Khorne logo. Now, outside of the main combat that we're known for in Total War, it is a turn-based strategy game where you manage your army, control and create forces and settlements, and even create diplomatic partnerships. Other AI factions can reach out to you and demand your allegiance, or basically plea and pay you not to attack them because you've grown so powerful. You'll also be able to level up your hero and your commander in basically any major force. You can learn new abilities like magical attacks or upgrade your weapons. Basically, if you've played previous Total War games, you already know what you're in for, especially the Warhammer series. What does Total War 3 Warhammer, or what does Total Warhammer 3 get right though? Well, it looks and it sounds like a Warhammer game. The story and the overall plot of why each faction is involved with Urson, whether it's taking a skull or saving him to stop the endless winter, is pretty cool. The game also got me out of my previous blinders when it came to Chaos Gods. Growing up, all I cared about was Khorne with the blood and the skulls, and it seemed cool, and edgy as well. Then I got into Tzeentch from a magical point of view, but this game got me looking at the youngest Chaos God, Slaanesh. And it being Total Warhammer 3 also had me doing what Games Workshop probably wants anyone who plays these games to do in general, actually look at the models and the tabletop game itself. Now, I'm painting some Black Templars at the moment, and I've been doing that for about 8 months now, but it had me look at the Emperor's Children Chaos Marines who need their own codex and their own models, but it also had me looking at the Demons of Slaanesh boxes.
I will not buy stupid shit for no reason!
But was Total Warhammer 3 for me?
Yes! And no.
Then what are you saying?
I'm saying no. But I'm leaning towards yes.
Then you're saying yes.
No.
Then it's no.
Not necessarily.
You sound dubious.
No, I'm positive.
Of what?
My theory!
And that would be?
The theory of yes or no.
This game is a Total War game. It's not necessarily a Warhammer game, if that makes sense. Sure, it looks and has elements of Warhammer in it. There's no problem with that. But people who love Total War and Warhammer will absolutely love this game. But personally, I did have some gameplay issues. I had my units stand there and practically get wailed on by archers or enemy units, and I had to manually tell them to charge and attack other units. And this happened constantly. It's like, say, spinning plates, making sure who's doing what, where everyone is and who's taking damage or who's doing something. Or in most instances I had, who's doing nothing. I had a few units of bloodletters literally standing there doing fuck all while AI archers were just blasting away at them who were right in front of them. Bloodletters are Khorne demons, and they're all about charging in and covering themselves in blood and taking skulls. They're all about getting in nice and close, and they were literally standing there doing nothing while they're 3 feet in front of them. Now yeah, you can say that it's the same in the tabletop game, but in the tabletop game you're taking it in turns. You're taking your time and you're looking at everything periodically. In Total War, if you've got a huge army against another huge army, you can easily forget about units, and if you're playing against the AI won't forget what each unit is doing like a player does. I've also had my Lord, which is basically your army's main commander, get completely destroyed in combat, and my Lord is giving up quicker than Kanye West running for president. Only for the Lord to cheer that they've won combat whilst running away. Yeah, I get it's a small thing, but still. Now the same can be said for the tabletop game, but depending on what army you're playing as will determine what you're good at and what you're weak to. Now there was a side mission where, if you will, in the main campaign, where the enemy faction was level 5 at the time, and I was level 18. So pretty big difference in levels, yeah? But I was against High Elves who had archers, and I was playing as the Demons of Slaanesh, and I got fucking destroyed. I found it a bit strange seeing as I was a level 18 and my enemy was level 5. I don't really understand the point of having a leveling system in a solo campaign where a level 5 army can completely swamp and destroy a level 18 Chaos army. The loading screens for the game too are very long in some instances, to the point where I could actually go and get a beer and come back and it'd still be going. And on top of some massive frame rate issues that I had during the actual turn-based word strategy portion of the game, During combat I found it smooth and pretty fun. But one thing I just don't understand too is, say, the Warhammer itself. Now, Total War Warhammer 1 released while Warhammer Fantasy Battles still exist, and just like both Total War Warhammer and the old Fantasy Battles, you'd have formations and you control a large squad of units together. In the game they're in formation and you can control the formation, but in the tabletop game you'd use a movement tray, and because you'd have this huge battle in Warhammer like you would in, say, Total War. But Warhammer Fantasy is no more, as are a lot of the factions available in Total War. Make sense? For example, Warhammer is now Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and it's a new world with no big huge battles like in Warhammer Fantasy, and it borrows a lot of its tabletop mechanics from Warhammer 40k, and it also uses the same style of bases and no longer uses movement trays. Factions are completely different now too. The Tomb Kings are completely gone from the tabletop now, but they're still available in the Total War series. Or another example, the Army of Kislev, who are the main faction of the game, and they're an army you cannot use or play when you're playing the tabletop game. It's the same with the Grand Cathay. You can't play or use this faction in the tabletop, but you can in the video game, which is weird because if you love this faction in the game, and as a big component with Warhammer style video games is to bring the video game audience to the tabletop, and you might not want to play the tabletop game if you can't play as your favourite faction. Now this could be because making a Total War Age of Sigmar game would basically be like creating a whole new game to compare to what we have with this, but it is a bit strange that they didn't try to bring over a gaming audience into the new Warhammer Age of Sigmar tabletop game. But not being a huge Total War fan, but this game nails the battles that I had in my head when I was playing Warhammer Fantasy with friends.
You don't have any friends.
It looks like it's been pulled out of Lord of the Rings, but well, it's Warhammer. While there aren't a huge variety of factions here in Total War Warhammer 3, if you've got the previous games, they'll be added into the campaign where you can play as all previous factions that will port over into this game. Graphically, it looks pretty damn rad, and the voice acting sounds and looks like what I pictured in my head when playing the tabletop game. The cutscenes for the story, while they're in 2D, they're still actually quite entertaining. The world and the story here feels like it could make a great TV series or a comic series, and yes, I know that there's a fuck ton of novels, but some of them are a bit of a slog to get through. But the baseline is, if you like Total Warhammer 2 from a couple of years ago, you're probably gonna love Total Warhammer 3. Seeing giant demons of chaos rampage across the battlefield is flat fucking fantastic, and you never know, this entry in the series might turn into that gateway drug for the tabletop for you. Hell, my Total War buddy who has enjoyed his time with this series so much is considering looking at the tabletop game. If you're a Warhammer fan, it can be pretty damn fun. If you're a Total War fan, then you already know what you're in for. It's gonna need some personal polish in my opinion, but otherwise there's definite fun to be had here.
Advise me well, and you will have your desire. Fail me, and I will have your soul.